Most people quit 3 feet from gold because nobody told them rejection is a skill you build, not a verdict you receive. You've been taught that failure means stop, that a closed door is the universe telling you to turn around. But what if every no you've collected is actually building something? What if the people who make it aren't the ones who avoid rejection? They're the ones who get better at it. Marcus Chen was 32 years old when he sent his 847th cold email to absolutely no one who cared. He kept a spreadsheet. Column A, company name. Column B, date sent. Column C, response received. Column C was almost entirely blank, just row after row of silence that felt like judgment. He'd been trying to launch a software consulting business for 18 months, working from a converted closet in his 1-bedroom apartment while his wife Sarah paid the bills with her nursing salary. The closet still smelled like old coats and failure. Every morning, Marcus would wake up at 5, make coffee he'd forget to drink, and open his laptop to the same routine. Research companies that might need his services, craft personalized pitches, hit send, wait for nothing. He'd been a senior developer at a tech company before this. Good salary, decent benefits, the kind of job his parents bragged about. But he'd watched too many people above him get promoted for playing politics instead of writing good code, and something in him broke. He wanted to build something that mattered, control his own future, prove he could create value on his own terms. The problem was, nobody wanted what he was selling. Or maybe they did, but his emails disappeared into inboxes like stones thrown into the ocean. No splash, no ripples, just gone. He'd read every book on sales, watched every YouTube video on cold outreach, hired a copywriter to revise his templates. Nothing changed. The rejections kept coming. Oh, or worse, the silence kept stretching. His friends stopped asking how the business was going. His parents suggested he look for real jobs again. Sarah never said anything, but Marcus could see it in the way she looked at him sometimes, this flicker of concern that felt like pity. He was becoming the cautionary tale people tell about passion projects and pipe dreams. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in March when Marcus's wife Sarah found him still awake at 4 a.m., staring at his laptop screen with dead eyes. She'd gotten up for a glass of water and seen the light under the door. When she pushed it open, Marcus didn't even turn around. He was looking at his spreadsheet, 8 of 47 rows of effort that had produced exactly 3 paying clients, all of whom had paid him barely enough to cover his software subscriptions. "How long have you been up?" Sarah asked, her voice still thick with sleep. "I don't know," Marcus said. "I sent 32 emails tonight. I thought if I could get the number high enough, the odds would..." He stopped. Even he didn't believe what he was about to say. Sarah sat down on the floor next to his chair. She didn't touch him. She just sat there in her old nursing school t-shirt, hugging her knees. "Baby," she said quietly, "I think it's time to stop." Those 5 words hit Marcus like cold water. Not anger, not frustration, just gentle resignation. The kind of tone you use with someone who's been trying to fix something that can't be fixed. "I can't," Marcus heard himself say, and he sounded like a child. "If I stop now, all of this, everything I've put in, it means nothing." "It doesn't mean nothing," Sarah said. "It means you tried. That's not failure. That's just knowing when to pivot." But Marcus couldn't hear pivot without hearing quit. He couldn't see trying without seeing wasted. That night, after Sarah went back to bed, Marcus opened a new document and wrote out his resignation letter from a dream he'd carried for 18 months. He'd send it to himself, he thought. Make it official. Admit defeat like an adult. He never sent it, but he saved it in a folder called The End, and the next morning, he couldn't make himself open his laptop at all. Marcus met David Park at a coffee shop where he'd gone to escape his apartment, not to network, not to work, just to sit somewhere his failure felt less suffocating. It was one of those aggressively hip places with exposed brick and baristas who looked like they'd judge your drink order. Marcus sat in the corner with a cold Americano he didn't want, scrolling through LinkedIn posts from people celebrating promotions and product launches and all the success he wasn't having. David was in his late 50s, Korean American, with silver hair and the kind of calm presence that made you feel like he'd seen everything twice. He'd been sitting at the next table working on a legal pad, actual paper, actual pen, and when he got up to leave, he paused next to Marcus's table. "You've been sighing for 45 minutes, David said, not unkindly. Either you're practicing for a theater audition or you're carrying something heavy. Marcus looked up, startled. He almost said, "I'm fine," the way you do with strangers, but something about David's face made the automatic lie stick in his throat. "I'm trying to figure out when to quit," Marcus said instead. "Quit what?" "Everything. My business, my dream, the whole—" Marcus gestured vaguely at his laptop. "I've been rejected so many times I've lost count. Actually, no. I haven't lost count. I've counted every single one, 847. David sat down without asking permission. "You counted your rejections?" "Yeah, I keep a spreadsheet. Is that pathetic?" "That's fascinating," David said, and he meant it. "Most people try to forget their failures. You're documenting them like data." "Well, the data says I should quit." David leaned back in his chair, studying Marcus with an expression that wasn't pity or judgment, just curiosity. "Can I tell you something? I got rejected from 93 venture capital firms before someone funded my first company. Sold it 8 years later for $42 million, started my second company, got rejected by 71 investors, sold that one for more. I'm working on my third now." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Hope felt dangerous. "So you're saying, keep going." "I'm saying you're measuring the wrong thing," David said. "You're treating rejection like failure. But what if rejection is just reps? What if you're at the gym and you're counting how many times you've lifted the weight and you're upset that your muscles haven't appeared yet? That's not the same thing, isn't it?" David pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back, and slid it across the table. "I run a small group, people who are building things, getting their faces kicked in by the market, trying to figure out if persistence is courage or delusion. We meet Thursday nights. Come if you want, don't if you don't." Marcus looked at the card. The address was a co-working space downtown. On the back, David had written, "Rejection is data, not destiny." "What do you do at these meetings?" Marcus asked. "We celebrate our failures," David said, "and we learn how to fail better." David called it the rejection ladder, and the first rule made Marcus want to walk away. You have to pursue 100 rejections before you're allowed to quit anything, not successes, rejections, active, intentional, documented no's. "You're telling me to fail on purpose?" Marcus said at that first Thursday meeting. There were 6 other people in the room, a novelist, a graphic designer trying to go freelance, a woman launching a sustainable fashion brand, a guy building a meditation app, a real estate investor, and a recent college grad with a tech startup idea. All of them looked as skeptical as Marcus felt. "I'm telling you to reframe what failure means," David said. He was standing at a whiteboard, marker in hand. "Right now, every rejection confirms your worst fear, that you're not good enough. So you send out emails hoping for a yes, and every no crushes you a little more. You're playing not to lose instead of playing to learn." "Okay, so what's the alternative?" David wrote on the board, the rejection ladder, 5 principles. "Principle 1, David said, tapping the board. "Rejection is a lagging indicator of effort. If you're not getting rejected, you're not putting yourself out there enough. The goal isn't to avoid no's, it's to collect them faster than the person next to you." The novelist, a woman named Patricia who'd been querying agents for 2 years, raised her hand. "But at what point do you admit your work isn't good enough, that you're not talented enough? That's not a mindset problem. That's reality." "Which brings us to principle 2, David said, writing again. "Every rejection contains information. Your job is to extract it. Was the pitch wrong? The timing, the audience, the product, the presentation? You're not trying to win, you're trying to learn what winning requires. That's different. Marcus thought about his 847 emails. How many of them had he actually analyzed? How many times had he asked what went wrong instead of just absorbing the silence as confirmation that he sucked? Principle 3, David continued. Rejection tolerance is a muscle. The first no destroys you. The 100th no is Tuesday. By the time you hit 1,000, you've rewired your nervous system. You're literally building new neural pathways that separate your self-worth from external validation. The guy with the meditation app, his name was James, leaned forward. So we just keep getting rejected until we're numb? Not numb, David corrected. Resilient. There's a difference. Numb people don't feel anything. Resilient people feel everything and keep moving anyway. Principle 4. Rejection velocity matters more than success rate. If you send 10 perfect pitches and get 2 yeses, that's a 20% success rate. Sounds good, right? But if I send 100 decent pitches and get 10 yeses, I've got 5 times the results you do with half the success rate. Volume creates opportunity. Perfectionism creates paralysis. Marcus felt something click. He'd been spending 3 hours on every email, trying to make each one flawless. What if he'd been optimizing for the wrong variable? And Principle 5, David said, writing the last line. The person who wins isn't the most talented. It's the one who's still there when everyone else quit. 90% of your competition will tap out before rejection number 50, 99% before number 500. If you can make it to 1,000, you're competing against almost nobody. Patricia shook her head. 1,000 rejections sounds like torture. It is, David said simply. Until it isn't. Until you realize you're building something that matters more than comfort. Until rejection becomes proof that you showed up. He handed out small notebooks, the kind with graph paper inside. Track everything, David said. Every pitch, every no, every piece of feedback. Turn your failures into data. We meet here every Thursday. Bring your rejections. We'll figure out what they're trying to teach you. Marcus started tracking rejections the way other people track calories, and the first week was psychologically vile. And he committed to sending 20 cold emails a day, not perfectly crafted, just solid enough to be professional. He stopped spending 3 hours on each one. He built templates, personalized the first paragraph, and hit send before the anxiety could stop him. The no's came fast, 11 rejections in the first 3 days. But here's what changed. Marcus started reading them differently. One response said, "Not a fit right now," which was different from "not interested." Another said, "Our budget is allocated for Q2," which meant timing, not talent. A third asked if he had case studies in their specific industry, which meant they were interested in concept, just not convinced by his proof. At the Thursday meeting, David made everyone share their worst rejection of the week. Patricia had gotten a form letter from her dream literary agent, not even personalized. James's meditation app got roasted on Product Hunt. The fashion designer's Instagram ad got 7 clicks and 0 conversions after she spent $300. Good, David said to each story. What did you learn? That I'm terrible at this? James said. Try again, David pushed. What did the market tell you? James thought about it. That my messaging doesn't connect. People aren't clicking because they don't understand the value in 3 seconds. Now you have a variable to test, David said. That's not failure, that's science. Marcus shared his 20 rejections. Most of them didn't even respond, he admitted. But 3 people said no with reasons. That's something, right? That's signal, David said. Most people quit at silence. You're extracting data from the void. Week 2, Marcus sent 30 emails a day. His response rate stayed brutal, maybe 5%. But the volume meant he was having actual conversations. Someone got on a call with him. It didn't close, but they talked for 45 minutes about their pain points. Marcus took notes like his life depended on it. Week 4, he hit rejection number 100 and David bought him coffee to celebrate. You just did what 99% of people won't do, David said. You stayed. But staying hurt. Sarah would ask how it was going, and Marcus didn't know how to explain that he was pursuing failure on purpose, that he was trying to get better at being told no. His parents called and he couldn't tell them he'd sent 200 cold emails that month and landed one $1,500 contract. Month 3, something shifted. Marcus sent 47 emails in 1 week and got 12 responses, not all positive, but 12 humans acknowledged his existence. One became a client, small project, $4,500, but it was proof the system could work. At the Thursday meeting, David asked the question he always asked, "What are you learning about yourself?" Marcus surprised himself with the answer, "I'm learning that I'm stronger than I thought. Every morning I wake up and choose to get rejected again. I don't know. That feels like something." The novelist, Patricia, had an agent reading her full manuscript. The fashion designer had her first tea wholesale order. James's meditation app was still struggling, but he'd completely rebuilt the onboarding flow based on user feedback from a brutal App Store review. They were all still failing more than they were succeeding, but they were failing forward, and that made all the difference. Month 6, Marcus hit rejection 500 on a Friday afternoon. He'd gotten faster at the pitch, better at handling objections, smarter about targeting. His close rate had gone from 2% to almost 8%, which meant for every 100 emails, he was landing 8 real conversations and maybe 2 clients. He'd stopped checking his spreadsheet with dread and started checking it with curiosity. What patterns were emerging? Which industries responded better? What subject lines got opened? What follow-up timing worked? His rejection data was becoming his competitive advantage. Rejection number 1000 came on a cold morning in November, exactly 8 months after Marcus met David in that coffee shop. It was an email from a Fortune 500 company he'd pitched 6 weeks earlier. "Thank you for your proposal. We've decided to move forward with another vendor." Marcus read it, added it to his spreadsheet, and felt nothing. Not devastation, not even disappointment. Just noted. Next. But then his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost didn't answer. He was about to send his morning batch of emails, but something made him pick up. "Marcus Chen? This is Rebecca Liu from Vertex Solutions. You sent me a pitch about 18 months ago. I just found it in my old emails. Are you still doing software consulting?" Marcus's heart stopped. Vertex Solutions was one of his first cold emails, number 47 on the spreadsheet. He'd completely forgotten about them. "Yes," Marcus managed. "Yes, absolutely. We just lost our development partner, and we need someone who can start immediately. Your email mentioned expertise in the exact stack we use. Do you have time for a call this week?" The contract was worth $90,000. 3 months of work, potential for extension. It would change everything, pay off debt, prove to Sarah this wasn't delusion, validate every single rejection that had led to this moment. But here's the thing. Marcus didn't feel like he'd won the lottery. He felt like he'd done exactly what David said to do. He'd stayed in the game long enough for luck to find him. That pitch had been mediocre. He'd sent it in his first month before he knew what he was doing. But he'd sent it, and 18 months later, when Vertex's vendor relationship fell apart, they remembered someone had reached out. They went looking. They found him. At the Thursday meeting, when Marcus shared the news, David didn't seem surprised. "You know what rejection 1000 means?" he asked the group. "That Marcus is a masochist?" James joked. "It means he's in the top 1% of people who refuse to quit," David said. "Most people tap out at 10 NOs. The brave ones make it to 50. The truly committed might reach 200. But 1,000? That's when you've changed who you are. You're not Marcus who's trying to build a business anymore. You're Marcus who built a business by refusing to let rejection define him." Patricia raised her glass of coffee. "To rejection 1000. They all raised their cups. To rejection 1000. Marcus's revenue hit $240,000 in year 2. He hired his first contractor. He moved out of the closet office into a real workspace. Sarah quit talking about backup plans and started talking about vacation plans. His parents stopped asking when he'd get a real job. But more than the money, more than the validation, Marcus had become someone different. Someone who saw closed doors as data points instead of judgments. Someone who knew that persistence wasn't about being superhuman. It was about being willing to feel uncomfortable longer than other people. He still kept the spreadsheet, still tracked every pitch, every response, every rejection. But now it read like a map. Here's where he'd been lost. Here's where he'd learned. Here's where he'd finally broken through. Rejection 1000 wasn't the end of hearing no. Marcus still got rejected, almost daily. The difference was that now every no was bringing him closer to the next yes, and he'd stopped being afraid of the distance between them. Here's what nobody tells you about success. It's not waiting on the other side of talent, connections, or perfect timing. It's hiding behind a wall of rejection that most people refuse to climb. You've been sold a lie that winners are chosen, that talent gets recognized, that cream rises to the top. But the truth is messier and more democratic than that. The people who make it aren't the most gifted. They're the most persistent. They're the ones who heard no so many times it lost its power. They're the ones who turned rejection into data, failure into feedback, and setbacks into stepping stones. Think about what you're avoiding right now because you're afraid of hearing no. The job you won't apply for because you don't have every qualification. The client you won't pitch because they're too big for you. The creative project you won't share because it's not perfect yet. The relationship you won't pursue because rejection would hurt too much. Every single one of those avoided rejections is keeping you exactly where you are. Not because you're not talented enough, because you're not rejected enough. You're optimizing for comfort when you should be optimizing for contact. You're trying to bat 1,000 when you should be trying to get up to bat 1,000 times. Marcus's story isn't special because he was exceptionally talented. He was a good developer, sure, but so are 10,000 other people in his city. What made him different was that he made a spreadsheet and decided that rejection was a metric to pursue, not avoid. He turned the thing that destroys most people into the thing that built him. And here's what that looked like practically. He stopped spending 3 hours crafting the perfect email and started sending 20 decent ones instead. He stopped waiting for the ideal moment and started acting in imperfect ones. He stopped protecting his ego and started feeding his evolution. You want to know the real secret? Rejection isn't personal, it's positional. That investor who passed on your idea, that employer who chose someone else, that person who didn't text back, they didn't reject you. They rejected this version of your pitch, at this moment in time, through their specific lens of need and circumstance. Change any of those variables and the outcome changes. But you'll never get to test different variables if you quit at rejection 7, or 17, or even 70. The magic number isn't about superstition, it's about statistics. If your success rate is 5%, you need to attempt 20 times to win once. Most people attempt 7 times, don't get lucky, and assume they're not good enough. They're not yet. But they would be if they stayed 20 attempts. David's rejection ladder isn't about developing thick skin or becoming numb to pain. It's about building the psychological infrastructure to keep moving when movement feels pointless. It's about training yourself to extract information from failure instead of identity from it. Think about Marcus at email 847, sitting in his closet at 4 a.m., believing he was running out of road. He was 3 rejections away from meeting David. He was 153 rejections away from the client that would change everything. But he didn't know that. Nobody knows their number. That's the cruel beauty of it. You only find out if you stay. So what does this mean for you, sitting wherever you are, carrying whatever dream or goal or desperate hope that brought you to this video? It means you're probably not failing. You're just not failing enough yet. It means the rejection that's crushing you right now is either teaching you something or toughening you up for what's coming. It means you quit too early or you're about to. The framework is simple. Track your rejections. Count them like victories because they are. Every no is proof you tried. Set a number. Make it uncomfortably high. David says 100 minimum, but pick your own impossible number and commit to reaching it before you're allowed to quit. Then start pursuing rejection with the same energy you've been using to avoid it. Send the emails, make the calls, post the work, ask for the meeting, pitch the idea, apply for the thing, ask out the person, submit the manuscript, launch the product, flawed and imperfect and not ready. Do it 20 times, 50 times, 100 times. Document what you learn. Adjust what you test. But don't you dare stop at rejection 32 and call it destiny. Because here's the truth that will either free you or infuriate you. The only difference between you and the person living your dream is that they got rejected more times than you've tried. They're not braver, they're more stubborn. They're not more talented, they're more tenacious. They didn't avoid the wall, they climbed it, bloody-knuckled and exhausted, one no at a time. So here's your challenge, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. I want you to pursue 10 rejections this week, not successes, rejections. I want you to deliberately put yourself in situations where you might hear no. Apply for jobs you think you're not qualified for. Pitch clients you think are out of your league. Share work you think isn't ready. Ask for opportunities you assume aren't available. Track them. Write them down. Note what you learn from each one. Notice how the 10th rejection feels different from the first. Pay attention to the moment when no stops feeling like annihilation and starts feeling like information. Then come back and tell me what happened. Leave a comment with your rejection count. Share the thing that scared you. Be specific. Vague inspiration dies by Tuesday, but concrete action builds momentum. Say, I pitched 3 clients and got rejected by all of them, but one gave me feedback I'd never considered. Say, I applied for 5 jobs I'm underqualified for and 2 asked for interviews. Say, I shared my art for the first time in years and the silence hurt, but I survived it. Build your own rejection ladder. Find your own David Park, or become one for someone else. Join communities of people who are pursuing dreams instead of comfort. Celebrate your failures out loud. Make rejection your competitive advantage. Because success isn't a door that opens for the chosen few. It's 1,000 doors, and most of them are locked, and the only way to find the one that opens is to keep knocking. The person who wins isn't the one with the golden key. It's the one whose knuckles are so calloused from knocking that they don't even feel the pain anymore. Marcus hit rejection 1,000 and found his yes. What's your number? You won't know until you start counting. So start today, right now. Stop protecting yourself from no and start collecting them like proof that you're still in the fight. Because the only real failure is the one where you stop trying before you find out what you're capable of becoming. Your move.